I just wanted to chat quickly about what we have been learning about in our Become Your Own Healer program. So we have started with the healing through the chakras. We do Reiki level one, and then we do healing through the chakras. And the reason why we do this is because it really helps us to become comfortable with the energy and with moving and healing energy. But also, the chakra system is a really good way to understand how we are blocked, stuck, and how we can open up our stuckness and our blocks in our lives because we really are a mind, body, spirit system. And so, when we are able to access our energy and access our emotions through energy, we are able to unblock ourselves in multiple ways and we are able to create the life that we are desiring in multiple ways. Essentially, we want to be a clear channel for light to flow through, for life to flow through, for our expression to shine through. We can't live our lives trying to think our way through everything, trying to heal through our thoughts, trying to like push and force our way through things. And we're honestly only going to get a limited experience of ourselves because our thoughts are so limited and they're so full of limited beliefs and limited ideas that if we try to live in this way, we are going to get a limited experience of ourselves and of our lives. So, one thing I did want to just read out from our solar and sacral class that I thought was really lovely and important for us to understand how these chakras work and how they impact our lives. And so, I'm just going to read this out and share it. So the solar plexus and the sacral chakra combine together the way that we kind of broke it down. While the root asks, am I supported as I learn and grow? The solar and the sacral chakra ask, who am I and what do I want? Or the sacral is, what do I want? And the solar is, who am I? And when those two things come together, what I want and who am I, we are basically asking, what I want and do I deserve it? What I want and am I good enough? What I want and, am I capable? What I want and that rising of our desire in the sacral then hits up against our identity in the solar. And if our identity doesn't align with what we want, or our beliefs about who we are don't align with what we want, then our wants will push down and we'll essentially go into a wanting of something that we've been told that we can do, what we think is possible, etc. And so these two chakras together, desire rises up. It meets our perceived how we feel about ourselves, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe is possible, and it either comes through or it is pushed back down. The rising of our desires happens if we have been safe to even explore those. Were we able to, as kids, ask ourselves what we want, what we need, where our emotions validate or invalidated? So the experience of ourselves as desiring or wanting things is directly related to how safe we were in that experience of ourselves as children. And so if you're like, I don't even know what I want, or like, what I want is unrealistic, or, I just want insert, blank, but we don't actually know what we want, it's because we haven't been able to explore ourselves in that way. And the experience of wanting, I would say desire is direction. So when you know what you want, you actually go on a journey. You're like being put on a journey, on a direction in your life that's going to allow you to become more of yourself, because the version of you who has what she wants, you have to become that version of you. So the current identity of, I don't have it, I'm not capable, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not, etc. That journey that identity has to unravel in order for you to become the version of you who has it. So your identity changes. So our desires actually allow us to become more of who we are. They put us on a journey towards authenticity, towards growth, towards our authentic selves, towards discovering who we really are. So the desiring is a really important aspect towards you becoming your authentic self. And our authentic self is a path that is forever unfolding. We're continuously learning who we are, what we're interested in. And as we're doing those things, we learn more about who we are and how we are and what kind of person we are. So authenticity is not static. It's something that you are, and you are always that. You're always, as you continue to follow your desires, your dreams, your passions, your inspirations, your goals, you become more of yourself because you are learning and embodying aspects of yourself that you haven't yet learned and embodied. So the safety of the root says, am I supported? as I learn and grow. Then the sacral chakra has the emotions, the desires, the passions. Ooh, I like this. Ooh, I don't like that. Ooh, that makes me angry. Ooh, that makes me sad. It helps us to learn about who we are. And when we're able to explore those things, our identity forms. I'm excited, I'm passionate, I'm dreamy, I'm girly. All these things are to form in our identity when we get to safely explore our natural desires, impulses, needs, and emotions, form the identity of who we are. So I'm going to read this little blurb here that sums that up nicely. So, when what we want meets who we believe ourselves to be, it can rise up and become an expression, or it can shrink down and become something we deny ourselves of. The root and the solar plexus are kind of like a sandwich that allows our wanting to rise up or stay stuck. If what we want triggers our root chakra fear of being safe, belonging, supported, and secure, we will not even let it rise into our awareness. So if I want something, but I've been told it's bad, or I've been treated, I've been rejected, if I have a feeling and I've been rejected for that feeling, I won't even let myself feel that feeling anymore because it's impacting my root chakra need for support, for safety and belonging. So it's like, ooh, like I have sadness or anger or fear. But last time I had sadness, anger, or fear, I was left alone, or I was rejected, or I was told I was bad, or I was shamed. Now I'm not going to feel that feeling because I don't feel safe to explore that aspect of myself. Same thing with our wants. If I wanted something as a kid and I was told I can't have it, we don't have money, we don't have this. And then you learn, oh, I don't get what I want. And so now I don't actually even let my wants come up because they're associated with disappointment, they're associated with lack, with anger, with frustration. So the wants don't rise up. So I don't get to actually then follow my desire and explore myself as that person who wants this thing. And then when I go in that direction, how I begin to turn into more of myself. So, um, yes, if what we want triggers a root chakra fear like safety, belonging, support, security, we will not even let it rise into our awareness. Or it may trigger who we believe ourselves to be, which is, unlovable, unworthy, incapable. And so we'll ignore it and push it back down. Our wants and our needs have been so suppressed that we can't actually feel them at all is also part of the process. If like I said, if we're asking for things or we're wanting things and we're constantly denied those things, or the response is negatively reinforced, we will stop experiencing our wants and desires, and we won't be able to develop as who we are. So, as we discussed, the root chakra is our foundation for safety, security, love, and belonging. It answers the essential question: are we supported as we learn and grow? When this foundation is steady, we feel safe enough to explore ourselves and move upward into our sacral chakra. Our root chakra is also the beginning of our nervous system. It's how our nervous system is developed. Is it strong and safe and sturdy, or is it sort of weak and shaky and easily triggered and anxious? This is based on the root chakra. So for me, the way that I learn is, this makes more sense to me than if I was to learn through the nervous system. But it's essentially the same line, the same area that we're looking at in the body. And as we move up into the sacral chakra, which governs our emotions, our wants, our needs, our desires, here we learn what makes us happy or sad or angry or excited or joyful or silly or playful. All of those emotions as kids feel like pleasure in our sacral chakra. The playfulness, the silliness, the giggling, that eventually becomes the sexual energy we feel later as adults. If we are not able to be childlike and playful, and we're, scolded for being too loud or being too much, and then we're told to be quiet, and we're not given the freedom to be giddy and joyful because it's our parents are suppressed, so that kind of triggers their comfort zone. Our emotions are triggering their comfort zone. When that happens, then we mute our excitement, our joy, our glee, our pleasure, our playfulness. And then as adults, that turns into our muted sexuality, our muted experiences of pleasure, our muted creativity, etc. So our sacral chakra allows us to experience those emotions. It helps us to know what makes us happy, what makes us sad, what hurts us, what makes us scared and afraid. And when we're allowed to feel and want without judgment, our inner world becomes a source of information rather than something to suppress. So now we're like able to actually use our emotions as guidance. Ooh, I like this thing, move towards it. Ooh, I don't like that, move away from it. Our emotions become a guidance system, and our desires begin to point us in the direction of what is aligned for us. We naturally expand our lives around what feels good and learn to limit what consistently feels harmful or draining. When those emotions are positively reinforced and we're allowed to explore them, it helps us to know who we are in this world. And it helps us to trust, oh, that means good. Oh, that means bad. Oh, that means trust. Oh, that means don't trust. Oh, that means I'm excited. Oh, that means I don't like that. And our emotions are actually able to be the guidance system that they are meant to be. Because our emotions have been so suppressed, our wants and needs have been suppressed. When our emotions come through now, they feel like something we can't trust, like something that we're trying to resist and move away from. They also now are associated more with our triggers and our unprocessed emotions than they are with our innate and natural guidance. These emotions are still letting us know, I don't like that, and I don't like this, and I like that, and I don't like this, but we don't have access to them as much as we did before. As we are given space to explore in this way, our identity begins to take shape, and we discover who we are. Maybe someone who is playful, sensitive, expressive, sporty, girly, creative, deeply passionate about certain things. Whatever the expression, it is our own expression. It comes from an experience that we're having on the inside of ourselves, where like our natural essence rises up and it tells us about who we are. From this exploration, a strong sense of self emerges, and we begin to know who we are. And then the energy rises into the solar plexus, which is our personal power, which is our will, which is in our rib cage. And we experience our identity. And with a solid sense of self, we know exactly who we are. Our identity is able to form. We know what we want, what we don't want, what we like, what we don't want, and what we don't like. And we feel empowered to make choices from our inner experience rather than from external pressure, and our lives begin to reflect who we truly are because we're making decisions from what's coming up from within, not from what's being told to us from outside. So for example, we'll get into this actually, but the root chakra supports us through feeling supported, safety, security, love, and belonging. The sacral chakra helps us feel ourselves in order to know ourselves, our emotions, our desires, our fears, and our needs. And then the solar plexus is where our identity lives, who we believe ourselves to be, and our ability to choose and act from that truth. When these centers are working together, they create a powerful and coherent system. We feel supported, connected to ourselves, and confident in living a life that is aligned, authentic, and deeply our own. But when the opposite happens, when we are not stable to and supported to explore ourselves, and we are not validated in our emotions and our wants and our needs, and we are not able to form an identity based on who we are from the inside, the root chakra does not feel safe, secure, or supported. And love and belonging feels conditional or uncertain. So instead of feeling held as we learn and grow, we feel like we have to stay small, protect ourselves, be careful, and prove ourselves in order to belong. We may prefer to hide instead of being seen. So knowing more of who we are doesn't get to happen. Parts of ourselves we may be told are not okay. So if we're a boy and an emotion comes up and we're told that we can't be emotional, now we suppress that aspect and we don't get to experience ourselves as an emotional being. We don't get to be with our emotions and learn who that is and how that is a part of me. If we are told that, laughing or being silly is too loud or too annoying, or, whatever our parents have the container and the space for, and then whatever we get socialized in when we go into other spaces, we then suppress those aspects and we don't get to grow and experience ourselves as that part of ourselves. And then without a solid foundation, moving into the sacral chakra becomes unsafe. Emotions, wants, needs, and desires are not encouraged or welcomed, so they are suppressed, ignored, and judged. Feelings like happiness, sadness, anger, excitement, and joy or silliness become overwhelming and confusing because when they rise up, they're associated with whatever responses we've been getting from them. So when I feel happy, and if someone has told me to be quiet, like my happiness now is going to be experienced as something I need to be afraid of or something I need to resist. I think with our silliness and our anger, if I get angry and I'm told anger is bad, now when I get angry, I'm experiencing my anger as something I need to resist, something that's bad that I need to push down. And so rather than becoming informative, our emotions become very confusing. Instead of learning who we are through our feelings, we disconnect from them. And without this internal feedback, our identity starts to form through external feedback. So what we were told from others about, you're being like this, you are like this, you're too loud, you're too expressive, you're too quiet, you're too shy. whatever people start to tell us about ourselves becomes our identity formation. We're no longer forming our identity from the inside, and we're beginning to form our identity from the external feedback we're getting, not the internal feedback. We're told from others about ourselves and the world becomes how we then are living our lives. Wanting starts to feel disappointing, maybe even dangerous, and feeling starts to feel like a liability, like I'm going to be rejected if I have these emotions. If I want this thing, I'm not going to get it. I'm just going to feel disappointed. And then we start to ignore our inner world and start to listen more to our outer world. Our emotions stop functioning as guidance systems, and rather than pointing us toward what nourishes us, they feel chaotic and inconvenient or something to control and suppress. And more so, we're like, go away, tell me what to do. Because now we learn this is how we get our needs met. When I behave this way is when I get support or love or care or attention. When I behave what's coming up in me, then I get reinforcements that I don't like. So when I'm focused on support, safety, and belonging as my primary needs, basically, however those needs are getting met is what we become attuned to doing. Our emotions stop functioning as guidance system. Yes, our unprocessed and suppressed emotions become connected to our triggers, which I was saying before, and our experience of them becomes reactive and hard to understand, often causing us to feel out of control with our emotions and further leading to avoiding them, judging them, suppressing them. Desire is no longer direction, it becomes something to silence, doubt, or override in order to stay safe or accepted. And at some point, in order to stop feeling feelings like disappointment and hurt and pain, we're like, we stop wanting things because we don't want to continue not being able to have them. And so, because self exploration is restricted, identity struggles to form, and we don't get to discover ourselves as playful, expressive, curious, passionate, or unique. Instead, identity becomes shaped by what is expected, tolerated, or rewarded by others. Again, we move from being internally expanded to externally. Without this organic identity formation, our sense of self weakens and we feel unsure of who we are, what we want, and what we don't want. Preferences feel unclear, choices feel stressful, and we lack self trust because we don't have a relationship with ourselves. Empowerment is replaced with hesitation and lots of self doubt when what we want comes up and it causes us to be like, I can't, I'm not, it's not possible, I'm going to get rejected, they're going to laugh at me. And then all of that goes back down. Life no longer feels like a reflection of who we are, but something we are reacting to, enduring, or trying to survive rather than consciously creating. This causes us to feel very powerless because we're getting things in our lives that we think that we want because someone told us we should want it, but then we're not feeling fulfilled because it's not actually what we wanted from the inside. And then when we don't really realize why this is happening, we feel powerless to make changes, but it's because we need to heal at our energetic level. We need to go into our chakras and start to open some of these blocks up so that energy can start to flow again, the emotion can start to flow again, and we can start to get to know ourselves as who we actually are.